The galactic conquered chamber hung in silence, suspended above the swirling blue-green marble of Viridia Prime. 57 species sat in concentric rings, their forms as varied as the stars they came from. Some armored in chitin, others wrapped in shimmering energy fields. A few little more than floating clouds of thought given temporary shape. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Rael Voss, the human representative. He was tall, lean, with eyes that had seen too many war zones and too few sunrises. His dark uniform bore no medals, only a small silver pin shaped like Earth's continents. For weeks the summit had dragged on. Arguments flared over border disputes, resource rights, and ancient grudges dressed up as policy. The Cathari hegemony, a proud and warlike species with obsidian skin and glowing red eyes, had pushed hard for military dominance in the outer rim. They saw peace as weakness. Humanity, though small in number compared to the galactic giants, had become an unexpected voice of balance. Voss had argued not with threats, but with logic, history, and a quiet firmness that made even the loudest delegates listen. But today, something was wrong. Voss had barely spoken during the morning session. He sat with his hands folded, his gaze fixed on the star map projected above the chamber. When the Cathari envoy demanded immediate withdrawal of neutral observers from the Zeta Corvi system, the room braced for Voss's rebuttal. Instead, he stood. Without a word, he reached to the side of his neck and pressed a small button. A soft click echoed through the sudden hush. His translation implant powered down. From that moment on, he would hear every alien tongue as meaningless noise, and they would hear only silence from him. He turned and walked out. No explanation. No dramatic speech. Just the steady tap of his boots on the polished floor, growing fainter until the chamber doors sealed behind him. A murmur rose, then swelled into confusion. Human delegates, 12 in total, rose as one. They deactivated their own implants, nodded once to no one in particular, and followed their ambassador out. Within minutes, the human section of the chamber was empty. On the observation deck, the delegates boarded their ship, the Wayfarer. It was sleek and black, built for speed, not ceremony. No flags flew from its hull. No farewell signals pulsed from its comms array. The vessel detached from the docking arm, rotated silently, and vanished into fold space with a ripple of distorted light. Back in the chamber, the Cathari envoy slammed a clawed fist onto his console. "They flee like cowards," he roared in his native tongue, though no one needed translation to understand the fury in his voice. But others were not so sure. The Elythians, gentle beings of light and memory, exchanged worried glances. Their elder Luma whispered to her aide, "Humans do not run from fights. They run toward them. This is different." Hours passed. The summit collapsed into chaos. Accusations flew. Some claimed humanity had betrayed the conquered. Others feared they had struck a secret deal with the hegemony. But deep in the monitoring stations beneath Viridia Prime, a different kind of alarm began to sound. At first it was subtle. A flicker in the long-range sensors. A star in the Sol system, Earth-Sun, had dimmed by 0.3% for exactly 7 seconds. Then another star light years away in the Cygnus arm did the same. Then another. Not randomly, in a pattern. Like ripples spreading from a single point. Scientists scrambled. Data poured in from observatories across the galaxy. The anomalies weren't natural. They moved faster than light, bending space in ways that defied known physics. And they all traced back to the moment the Wayfarer jumped away from Viridia Prime. On the bridge of the Cathari flagship Iron Maw, High Commander Vrax watched the star charts turn red with warnings. "Track the human ship," he ordered. "Find where they went, and find out what they've done." But the Wayfarer left no trail. Fold space jumps erased themselves. It was as if humanity had stepped off the edge of reality. Meanwhile, on a quiet research outpost orbiting a dead star called Nix 7, Salvage Captain Jory Marin was finishing a routine scan of derelict freighters when her console beeped with an emergency priority signal. It wasn't from any known fleet. The encryption was old, human military grade, pre-conquered era. Her fingers flew over the controls, heart pounding. She hadn't heard a human transmission in months. The message was fragmented, glitching in and out. But one phrase repeated, clear and chilling. "They're awake. Tell no one." Burn this message. Before she could react, the signal cut off. The screen went black. Then, for just a fraction of a second, the stars outside her viewport flickered, as if someone had blinked the universe. Back at Viridia Prime, panic spread. Ships began powering up. Diplomats rushed to their vessels. The Great Hall of the Conquered, once a symbol of unity, emptied within the hour. Only Luma remained, staring at the empty human seats. She remembered something Voss had said to her in private, days before the summit ended. Peace isn't about treaties, he'd told her, his voice low. It's about knowing when to disappear so others can live. Now, as the first deep space tremor shook the station, a vibration felt not in the bones, but in the soul. Luma understood. Humanity hadn't abandoned peace. They had sacrificed themselves to protect it, and whatever they had awakened, it was hungry. The stars trembled not from fear, but from the weight of something ancient stirring in the dark, something that had slept for eons, dreaming of silence. And now, with humanity's sudden withdrawal, the universe had gone too quiet too fast. The balance had broken. In the void between galaxies, where no light reached and time lost meaning, something turned its attention toward the source of the silence, toward Sol, toward Earth. The Conquered didn't know it yet, but the real war had just begun, and humans weren't running from it. They were leading it away from everyone else. The chamber lights dimmed. Outside, a nearby star pulsed once, then went dark for 3 full seconds before returning. No one spoke. No one needed to. The message was clear. The stars were watching, and they were afraid. Weeks passed since the humans vanished from the Galactic Conquered. The stars still flickered at odd moments, and deep space sensors kept picking up strange ripples in subspace, like echoes from a place that should not exist. Most species tried to ignore it. The Ketheri hegemony, however, saw opportunity. They claimed humanity had developed a secret weapon and fled to use it. Their warships doubled patrols near human-controlled space, ready to strike first. But far from the politics and paranoia, on the cold edge of the Andromeda Arm, Salvage Captain Jory Marin drifted alone in her battered freighter, the Rustwing. She wasn't a hero. She wasn't even particularly brave. She just needed credits to fix her ship and maybe buy a real meal for once. That's why she followed the ghost signal. It had come through again 3 nights ago, faint, broken but unmistakably human. Encrypted with old Earth military codes, the kind no one used since the Conquered formed. The signal pointed to a dead zone near the star G887, a place marked on star charts as uninhabited, unstable, a void. Perfect for hiding something. Jory brought the Rustwing out of fold space with a shudder. Before her hung a derelict station, its hull pitted with age and something worse, long gashes that looked melted, not cut. No lights, no power signatures, just silence and shadow. She suited up, checked her oxygen, and tethered herself to the airlock. The station's name was barely visible under layers of ice. Aurora Outpost. Human. Pre-conquered. Her stomach twisted. She'd heard rumors about this place. A science lab. Shut down after budget cuts, but now, floating in the dark, it felt like a tomb. Inside, the air was frozen solid. Frost coated every surface. Her boots crunched on brittle ice as she moved through empty corridors. Then she saw them. Bodies, dozens of them, frozen mid-motion. A scientist reaching for a console. A technician curled in a corner. All human. All with eyes wide open, mouths slightly parted as if they'd seen something impossible in their last seconds. No signs of violence. No weapons. Just pure, unfiltered terror locked in ice. Jory's breath fogged her visor. She forced herself forward. In the central lab, one terminal still glowed faintly, powered by a backup battery. She wiped frost from the screen. A video file played on loop. It showed Earth's moon, but not as it should be. Instead of the familiar gray sphere, it was shattered, broken into thousands of glittering fragments orbiting the planet like a ring of glass. Cities on Earth below were dark. No lights, no movement, just silence. The timestamp read, 17 days ago. The same day humans walked out of the peace talks. Jory's hands shook as she scrolled through logs. Most were corrupted, but fragments remained. Project Lumen failed. We thought we were tapping into dark energy. But we opened a door. Something came through. Not physical. Not energy. It unmade things. The moon was first. It just stopped being solid. They're not attacking. They're correcting. Like we're a mistake in the universe. Earth is going dark. Total EM blackout in 6 hours. If anyone finds this, don't look for us. Don't follow. Just stay quiet, another log, voice only, barely audible. We didn't wake a monster. We woke the silence between stars. And it hates noise. Jory backed away from the terminal. Her radio crackled. Not from her ship, from deep space. A distorted voice speaking in broken standard. Not weapon, trap. They sleep. We woke them. Then static. She ran back to the rustwing, heart hammering. As she sealed the airlock, she glanced out the viewport. The stars around G887 blinked once, twice, then returned to normal. But something felt wrong. The darkness between them seemed thicker. Back in her cockpit, she sent a coded burst to the nearest neutral relay. Just the coordinates and a single line. Humans didn't flee. They hid. And something followed. She didn't know who would get it. She didn't care. She just needed someone to know the truth. Meanwhile, on Viridia Prime, the message reached Dr. Elira Covey, a xenolinguist working with the Concord Science Council. She had been studying the star flickers, convinced they weren't random. When Jory's transmission arrived, Elira stayed up all night cross-referencing the logs from Aurora Outpost with ancient human astrophysics papers. One phrase kept appearing. The quiet, not a place. Not a being, a state, a natural law. According to fringe human theories from the 22nd century, the idea was that the universe preferred stillness. That life, technology, even thought, anything that created noise in the cosmic background was an anomaly. And anomalies over time were corrected. Elira's blood ran cold. If true, then humanity hadn't been attacked. They'd been noticed, and whatever corrected anomalies, it was still out there. Her fears were confirmed when a Cathari patrol ship near Sol reported total sensor blackout. Not jamming, not interference, as if the space around Earth had been erased from detection. No light, no heat, no signals, just nothing. The Cathari High Command declared it a human trick. They launched a full reconnaissance fleet toward the Sol system, weapons hot, but Elira knew better. She tried to warn the Concord Council. "You're not chasing humans," she pleaded. "You're walking into a graveyard." No one listened. Fear had taken hold. The Cathari wanted glory. The smaller species wanted protection. And Earth, silent, dark, empty, became the galaxy's greatest mystery. Jory, meanwhile, jumped her ship to the Tarnus system, hoping to disappear. But as she entered orbit around the ocean moon Tarnus 9, her sensors pinged. Something was down there. Not a ship. Not a structure. A signal. Deep underwater, pulsing in the same rhythm as the star flickers. She didn't want to investigate, but the memory of those frozen faces haunted her. If humans had tried to warn the galaxy, maybe someone should listen. She landed near the coast, rented a submersible from a local dockmaster, and dove into the abyss. 2 kilometers down, in crushing darkness, her lights caught it, a smooth, black object half buried in silt. It was crystalline, shaped like a twisted spiral, humming with a sound just below hearing. When she touched it, her mind flooded with images. Not words, but feelings. Cold, vast, hungry, and ancient beyond counting. The artifact wasn't alien. It was human. But not from this time. Carved into its base, in Old Earth script, were 3 words. We tried twice. Elira, studying the data from Jory's earlier transmission, made a connection. The subspace ripples matched the artifact's frequency, and both matched a pattern found in human myths, stories of a great silence that came before civilization. When the stars went dark and only the quiet ones survived, humanity hadn't just discovered the threat. They'd faced it before, and failed. Now they were trying again, but this time they weren't asking for help. They were making sure no one else got caught in the storm. As Jory surfaced from the deep, the stars above Tarnus 9 flickered again, longer this time. 5 full seconds of darkness. When the light returned, her comms were dead. Not broken, empty. As if the universe had forgotten her signal existed. She looked up at the sky, no longer seeing points of light but eyes. Watching, waiting, and she understood. The humans didn't withdraw from peace, talks because they gave up. They withdrew because peace was no longer possible. Something older than war had awakened, and it was coming for every loud, bright, noisy civilization in the galaxy. Jory powered up her ship. She didn't know where to go, but she knew one thing: she had to stay quiet. No transmissions, no engine flares, just drift, hide, survive. Because out there in the spaces between stars, the silence was no longer empty. It was alive. On the ocean moon of Tarnus 9, rain fell in steady sheets, drumming against the dome of Dr. Elira Cove's research station. She hadn't slept in 2 days. The artifact Jory Marin had found, now resting in a sealed chamber under triple containment, hummed softly, its spiral surface shifting colors like oil on water. Elira sat before it, eyes red, fingers tracing lines of data on her screen. She had matched its resonance to every known signal in the Concord database. Nothing fit, except one thing: the subspace ripples that followed humanity's disappearance. She played the audio again, the low, almost musical tone emitted by the crystal. It wasn't sound. It was structure, a pattern woven into reality itself, and buried inside it like a whisper in a storm were fragments of human language, not spoken, imprinted, as if the artifact remembered voices that had touched it long ago. We tried twice, it seemed to say. The first time we built towers to the sky. The second we split the atom. Both times the quiet came. Elira's breath caught. She cross-referenced ancient human records, myths, religious texts, even nursery rhymes. In every culture, across every continent, there were stories of a time when the stars went out. Not for hours, not for days, for generations. A long night, they called it. Most scholars dismissed it as poetic exaggeration. But what if it was memory, buried deep, passed down in symbols and songs? She ran a new simulation. If the artifact was a warning, then its design wasn't random. The spiral matched cosmic background fluctuations from 12,000 years ago, right when human civilization first rose. And again 80 years ago during Earth's last Great War. Both times humanity grew loud, broadcasting radio waves, launching satellites, splitting atoms, shouting into the void. And both times, something answered. Not with fire. Not with ships. With silence. The quiet didn't destroy, it erased. It folded noisy things back into stillness as if they never were. The moon's shattering wasn't an attack, it was a correction. Like smoothing a wrinkle in fabric. Elira's hands trembled as she typed a final message to the Concord Science Council. The threat is not hostile. It is natural. Like gravity. Like entropy. And we are the anomaly. She hit send. The message vanished into the network. But no reply came. Not because they ignored her. Because the network itself was failing. Across the galaxy, comms arrays reported strange dropouts. Signals vanished mid-transmission. Ships lost contact with bases for minutes at a time, not due to jamming. The signals simply ceased to exist, as if the space they traveled through had forgotten how to carry them. On Viridia Prime, panic returned. The Cathari fleet, now nearing the edge of Sol system, reported total sensor blackout. Their long-range scans showed nothing. No planets, no debris, not even the sun. Just empty space where a star system should be. Their commander, furious, ordered a probe launched. It crossed the boundary and disappeared. No explosion, no distress call, gone. Back on Tarnus 9, Elira watched live feeds from deep space observatories. One by one, stars near Sol blinked out, not dimmed but fully extinguished as if switched off. Then after a few seconds they returned, but each time they came back slightly dimmer, as if the act of being seen had worn them thin. She understood now. The quiet wasn't a creature, it was a law, and humanity, in their endless drive to explore, to communicate, to shine, had broken it. The artifact pulsed gently. Elira placed her palm against the containment glass. A new image flooded her mind, not words, but a feeling. A memory not her own. She saw Earth, not ruined, not burning, just quiet. Cities dark, no planes in the sky, no satellites, no radio waves. People moved in silence, using hand signals, writing on paper, living in small groups. They had chosen this, not out of fear, out of respect. They had gone dark to survive, and they had left the artifact behind, not as a weapon, but as a lesson. Elira knew what she had to do. She couldn't stop the Cathari. She couldn't bring back the humans. But she could try to spread the truth before it was too late. She packed a data core with all her findings, logs, simulations, translations of the artifact's resonance. Then she contacted Jory Marin, The salvage captain answered on the first ring, her face shadowed, eyes wary. "You found something," she said. "Not a question." "Yes," Illyra replied, "and you're the only one who might believe it." She sent the core through a secure burst. "Take it to the Elythians. They remember old things." "They'll listen," Jory nodded once. "I'm already on my way." As the call ended, the lights in Illyra's station flickered. Outside, the rain stopped. Not gradually, instantly, the clouds hung motionless. The wind died. Even the ocean grew still, as if frozen in time. Then, for 3 full seconds, every star in the sky went dark. When the light returned, Illyra's console was blank. All data gone. The artifact sat silent, its glow extinguished. Only the memory remained in her mind. She stepped outside. The air felt heavy, empty. No birds, no insects. Just silence so deep it hurt her ears. She looked up. The stars shone again, but they felt different. Watchful. Far away, near the edge of known space, the Cathari flagship Iron Maw entered what should have been the Sol system. Sensors showed nothing. Captain Vrax ordered visual confirmation. The viewports revealed only blackness. No sun, no planets, no debris field. Just void, impossible, he growled. "Scan again." The science officer hesitated. "Sir." "Our instruments say we're in empty interstellar space, but our navigation says we're at Sol." Vrax slammed his fist. "Then we're being tricked. Deploy the resonance lance. Burn the illusion away." The weapon charged, a device designed to shake reality itself, to force hidden things into view. As it fired, a pulse of raw energy shot forward and vanished, not deflected, not absorbed, erased before it traveled a kilometer. Then the stars around the Iron Maw began to blink out, one by one, starting from the edges of their view and moving inward, like a closing eye. On Tarnus 9, Illyra watched the same pattern unfold in the sky above her. She knew what it meant. The quiet wasn't just near Earth anymore. It was spreading, drawn by noise, by fear, by weapons. She ran back inside, grabbed a simple slate and stylus, no power, no signal, and began writing. Not for transmission, for whoever might find it later. In clear, basic words, she wrote, "They sleep in the dark between galaxies. We woke them. We must silence the light." She left the slate on the table, walked to the shore, and sat on the wet sand. She didn't speak, didn't move, just breathed slow and quiet. Above her, the stars trembled once more, but this time, she did not look away. She listened, and in the silence between heartbeats, she heard it, the faintest hum, like a lullaby from the edge of time. Not threatening, not angry, just waiting for the noise to stop, for the galaxy to remember how to be still. Illyra closed her eyes. She would not broadcast. She would not run. She would bear witness, because someone had to remember what happened when a species grew too loud, and someone had to teach the others how to be quiet before it was too late. The ocean remained still. The wind did not return, and high above the stars held their breath. A lone ship drifted near the ruins of Proxima Centauri. It was small, scarred, and running on backup power. Its hull bore no markings, only the faint outline of where a name once was, scrubbed clean as if the ship itself wanted to be forgotten. Inside, a woman sat alone in the cockpit, her hands resting lightly on the controls. Her name was Tessa Rowe. She had not spoken to another human in over a year. Outside, the remains of Proxima B floated in silent orbit, a dead world, its surface cracked and blackened, not by war but by absence. No cities, no lights, no signals, just dust and silence. Earth was worse. No one had seen it in months, not even the Cathari, who had turned back after their flagship vanished near Sol, leaving only a looping distress call that cut off mid-sentence. Tessa took a deep breath. She activated the ship's comm array, not to call for help but to broadcast. On every frequency, every channel, every known language in the conquered database, her voice was calm, steady, stripped of fear. "We are not hiding. We are bait," the message repeated, looping into the void. She knew someone would hear. The Cathari, the Elythians, maybe even Jory Marin if she was still out there. It didn't matter. The point wasn't to be understood. It was to be heard. Because that was the plan. While the galaxy argued over peace talks and borders, humanity had made a choice. Not to fight, not to flee, to lure. Deep beneath Mars, in a chamber sealed before the Exodus, Scientists had built the last hope, a device they called the beacon. It didn't shoot energy or fire missiles. It pulsed with a very specific kind of noise, the exact resonance that had first awakened the quiet, the same signal that shattered the moon. But this time, it wasn't an accident. It was a trap. Tessa's ship, the Evam, carried a copy of that signal, and she was about to turn it on. As her message spread through space, sensors across the galaxy lit up. The Cathari hegemony, still reeling from the loss of the Iron Maw, detected the transmission. High Command debated. Some called it a trick. Others saw it as proof humans had the weapon. They had to be stopped. A fleet of 12 warships broke orbit from their staging ground near Zeta Reticuli. They jumped toward Proxima Centauri, weapons charged, shields raised. They would not be erased like the Iron Maw. They would strike first. Tessa watched their approach on her screen. She didn't flinch. She knew they would come. She counted on it. She reached under her console and flipped a switch. A low hum filled the cabin. The beacon activated, not loud, not bright, but deep, so deep it vibrated in the bones of space itself. Immediately the stars around her began to flicker. Not the brief winks of before. This was different, slower, heavier, like a giant turning in its sleep. Then the sky broke, not with light, but with absence. A patch of darkness opened near Proxima Centauri. Not black, but less than black. A hole where reality thinned. From it came no sound, no energy, only a feeling of immense weight, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The Cathari fleet arrived just as the hole widened. Their commander, Vrax's successor, barked orders. Target the human ship. Destroy it before he never finished. The lead warship crossed the edge of the dark patch and vanished. Not exploded. Not torn apart. Simply gone, as if it had never existed. The ship behind it fired its main cannon. The beam shot forward, and stopped mid-air, dissolving into nothing. Panic spread through the fleet. They tried to retreat, but fold space engines failed. Navigation systems went blank. Even their internal comms filled with static, then silence. Tessa watched it all on her screen. Her face remained calm. She had seen this before, in simulations, in dreams, in the final logs from Earth. This was the moment. The trap was set, but it needed more. She opened a new channel, this time directed only at the Cathari flagship. I know you can hear me, she said. You think we're your enemy. We're not. We're the warning, and you just walked into the storm. On the Cathari bridge, the commander stared at the view screen. Tessa's face appeared, pale, tired, but resolute. Behind her, the dark patch pulsed like a heartbeat. What is that thing? He demanded. It's not a thing, Tessa replied. It's a rule. And we broke it. Now it's fixing us. She paused. But you don't have to die for our mistake. Join us, not in war. In silence, the commander hesitated. Around him, his crew whispered in fear. Stars were blinking out in waves now, spreading from the dark patch like ripples in ink. Then a new signal cut through the static. Not from Tessa, from far away. A voice Elira Cove had recorded before her station went dark. It played across all channels, clear and soft. They sleep in the dark between galaxies. We woke them. We must silence the light. The Cathari commander understood. This wasn't a battle. It was a choice. He gave the order. Shut down all active systems. No weapons, no comms, no engines. Go dark. One by one, the Cathari ships powered down. Lights off. Shields dropped. Even their life support shifted to silent mode. They became cold, quiet shapes in the void. The dark patch slowed. The flickering stars steadied. Tessa smiled faintly. Good, she whispered. But the quiet wasn't done. The dark patch began to grow again. Not from the beacon, but from something deeper. Something drawn not just by the signal, but by the fear, the noise of panic, the last echoes of the Cathari weapons fire. It was learning. Tessa knew what came next. The beacon alone wouldn't hold it. It needed an anchor. A sacrifice, she input final coordinates. The Ivam turned toward the heart of the dark patch. On the Cathari flagship, the commander saw her move. What are you doing? He shouted over the open channel. Finishing what we started, Tessa said. She engaged the thrusters. The small ship shot forward straight into the void. As it crossed the threshold, time bent. The Avam didn't vanish. It stretched, its form smearing across seconds, minutes, hours. Light bent around it like water around a stone. Then, with a final pulse, the beacon flared one last time, not as a signal but as a lock. The dark patch shuddered, closed, sealed. Silence returned. The Cathari fleet floated in empty space. Proxima Centauri shone normally again. The stars no longer flickered. But Tessa Rowe and the Evum were gone. Back on Tarnus 9, Elira Cove felt it. The moment the pressure lifted, the ocean stirred. Wind returned. Birds called from the trees. She looked up. The stars were steady, but quieter, as if they had learned to whisper. Jory Marin aboard the Rustwing near Elythian space received Tessa's final broadcast. She played it once, then deleted it. Some messages weren't meant to be saved, only remembered. The Elythians gathered in their light temples, sharing the truth through touch and memory. They would not speak of it. They would live it, quietly. And in the Sol system, deep beneath the silent cities of Earth, the last human fleet waited, their dampeners held. Their world remained dark. They had bought time, not with weapons, with silence. Tessa's sacrifice had not destroyed the quiet. It had shown it a boundary, a line it could not cross yet, but the galaxy had changed. The Cathari, once proud and loud, now moved with caution. Their warships flew dark, their comms minimal. Even their speech grew softer. The conquered, what remained of it, met in secret. No grand chambers, no star maps, just a single rule. No species shall broadcast its presence beyond its home system. No more shouting into the void, because now they knew the universe was not empty, it was listening, and the stars trembled not from fear, but from the weight of a lesson finally learned. Tessa's voice echoed in the minds of those who heard her last words, not as a warning, as a promise. We are not hiding. We are waiting. And in the quiet dark, the galaxy held its breath, hoping it would be enough. The sky above Viridia Prime was clear for the first time in months. No flickers. No ripples in the dark. Just steady, quiet stars. The galactic conquered no longer met in grand chambers. They gathered in small groups on quiet moons or drifting stations, speaking in hushed tones. No one broadcasted. No one shone too brightly. The lesson had been learned the hard way. On the ocean moon of Tarnus 9, Elira Covey walked barefoot along the shore. The wind was soft. The waves gentle. She carried no devices, no data pads, no comms. Just a small notebook made of real paper and a wooden pencil. She wrote only what she saw. The color of the dawn, the call of a seabird, the way the mist curled over the hills. Simple things. Quiet things. She had not spoken to another scientist in weeks. Not because she was alone, but because words were no longer needed. The truth lived in silence now. Far away, near the edge of the Andromeda Arm, Jory Marin guided her ship, the Rustwing, through a field of ice shards. She no longer salvaged wrecks. She watched, listened. If a ship flew too loud, too fast, she would send a single pulse, a warning in old human code. Go dark. Most understood. Some didn't. Those vanished, swallowed by the same quiet that had taken the Iron Maw and the Evum. No one mourned them openly. Mourning made noise. Back on Viridia Prime, the Cathari envoy stood alone on an empty observation deck. His name was Kale, not Vrax. He wore no armor, only simple gray robes. His people had changed. Their warships sat grounded. Their weapons were sealed. They farmed their home worlds again, built with stone and wood, not plasma and steel. They had learned that strength was not in fire, but in stillness. He looked up at the stars and remembered Tessa Rowe's last words. We are not hiding. We are waiting. He wondered if she was still out there, somewhere in the folded dark, holding the line. No one knew what happened to the Evum after it entered the void. Some said it became part of the trap, a permanent anchor in the fabric of space. Others believed Tessa had not died, but been changed, made into something that could speak the language of the quiet. Elira thought maybe both were true. What mattered was this. The stars no longer trembled. Earth remained dark. No signals, no lights, no ships. But life was there, hidden, breathing, waiting. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had chosen a different path, one of silence, of small fires, of stories told face to face, not across light years. They had become part of the universe again, not its voice. The Elythians, beings of light and memory, now moved only in shadow. They stored no data in networks, They passed knowledge through touch, through song, through shared silence. They taught others to listen, not with ears but with stillness. One evening, as Alira sat by her window, a soft chime sounded, not from a device, from the wind. A crystal hanging outside, shaped like the artifact from the deep, hummed in a familiar tone. She stepped out. The stars above pulsed once, gentle, slow, like a heartbeat. It was not a warning, it was a greeting. She smiled. For the first time in months, she did not fear the dark. Across the galaxy, others felt it too. A Cathari child looked up from her garden and saw the stars blink in rhythm. A pilot in the outer rim cut his engines and drifted just to hear the silence. A scientist on a frozen moon stopped her work and simply watched the snow fall. The quiet had not left. It had settled. Like dust after a storm, like breath after a scream, and the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, was learning how to be still. No one declared victory. No treaties were signed. No monuments were built. But something deeper had changed. Civilizations that once raced to be the loudest, the brightest, the farthest, now measured themselves by how softly they could walk through the stars. Ships traveled with minimal power. Cities dimmed their lights. Music was played on real instruments, not broadcast. Children were taught to listen before they spoke. The old ways were not forgotten. They were honored by being set aside. Years passed. The memory of the Exodus faded into myth. But the practice remained. The silent accord, unwritten, unspoken, lived in every quiet choice, every dimmed light, every withheld signal. And Earth? Earth stayed dark. But sometimes, on the clearest nights, if you looked very closely at the patch of sky where Sol should be, you might see a single faint glimmer, like a candle seen through thick fog. Not a signal, not a call, just proof that someone was still there, still watching, still waiting. Tessa Rowe's name was never recorded in official logs. But in the quiet places, in the songs of the Ilithians, in the carvings of the Cathari, in the whispered stories of salvage captains, she was remembered as the one who turned off the light so others could see the stars again. Elira Cove grew old on Tarnus 9. She never left. She taught the young to read the sky, to feel the wind, to know when silence was a gift and not a threat. When she died, they buried her by the sea with no marker, no ceremony. Just a single note played on a wooden flute as the tide came in. Her last words, spoken to no one but the air, were, "Thank you for the quiet." The galaxy did not fall into chaos without human voices. It found a new balance. Not perfect, not easy, but peaceful. And the stars? They no longer trembled. They watched. And for the first time in a long time, they were not afraid.